I'll go ahead and start off and address probably a couple things you're going to ask. So we do have 3 guys that are currently still on our football team but are not out here. Jalen Samuels is currently indefinitely suspended just for a violation of team rules. And then Kamar Wheaton and Teddy Knox are being suspended at the moment for just academic purposes. So they're all still part of our team. They're just not with us right now, and we're all hopeful that there's a path back at some point in the near future.
But you anticipate them being back in the fall?
As of right now, yeah. I mean, there's nothing that says they couldn't or shouldn't, but you know, in one case, just there's a lot of things to work through, and then the other, like I said, it's academically, and we have a really high standard, and when those standards are met, then we'll revisit rejoining.
What have been your initial impressions of the first couple days of practice?
I think it's been good. You know, it was spirited today. You know, we went 3 straight days. It's the only time all spring we'll go 3 days in a row. And so the first 2 days for helmets, I thought we got better. We got good energy, very basic on offense and defense, just getting out and kind of getting back in the swing of football and practicing. And we got a lot of new faces together. But then today with the pads on, and again, 3 straight days, I didn't think we were dead-legged. I thought the guys worked hard. It's some back and forth. There's good energy, and you know that's all spring's about, getting a foundation. You know, you're going to compete. We end usually with some sort of a competitive drill, and everybody wants to focus on the results. But this is when you're really laying the foundation, and that's what we're focusing on for now the next 12 practices.
With that foundation, obviously, you're not going to name any starters or anything anytime soon. But do you kind of get a feel that there is more depth and kind of that rotational ability already?
Yeah, I think there's legitimately a lot of competition out there, and that's good. You know, whether it's returners and younger players that are now more in the mix, or whether it's guys coming back from injury, or whether it's the newcomers, whether it be high school or transfers that can come in and just really create some quality competition. You know, we believe in iron sharpens iron, both on your side of the ball and then when you go against each other. And so, yeah, that's spring's really about competing, understanding the base offense, defense, and the fundamentals we care about. You know, on defense, we want to be able to run to the ball better. We want to be able to take good angles and leverage the ball and tackle. On offense, we want to value the football better than we did at the beginning of the season. We want to be better blockers. We want to do the fundamental things. That's where we can create that foundation and have the competition that doesn't really result in, at the end of spring, saying these are your starters.
At this time a year ago, you were implementing your systems, and the oldest guys on the team remembered you from when you were here before Miami, but can you sort of describe how different it is for you and your staff just in terms of planning the spring and planning your daily routines out here? How much different it is with a year under your belt with this team?
Yeah, a lot smoother. Obviously, year 2 should be, but I felt that way after day 1. Even like I said, even though we're in helmets, it felt like football day 1. It felt like a good practice. Our guys knew how we practiced, the expectations. Obviously, on both sides of the ball, the scheme, the terminology hasn't changed. So for the majority, there was good carryover, and then for about the 20 new faces, they've really meshed in and just kind of blended in really well. And so from that standpoint, yeah, we're at a different level of what we're coaching and teaching than we were this time a year ago, and that's the way it should be.
What have you seen from Preston coming in, kind of being the guy and taking control, both leadership and performance-wise?
Yeah, I think Preston's been great. You know, he's fully healthy, as you can see. He was able to go through most of the winter off-season as well, which was good, to be with his teammates and compete and lead. He's out here. He's being Preston. He's practicing free. He's not. I don't think he's practicing uptight in any way or acting like there's any new pressure. And so, I mean, again, it's just practice, but I think there's been a lot of good things, and then a lot of things that's why we practice to get better at. I think he's done great, and I think Kevin as well has just really picked right up where he left off as well.
Prior to this year, Preston was, you know, the young guy waiting his turn. Now all of a sudden he's the veteran in that group. How has that impacted him as the guy with the most experience in your system?
Yeah, I think over time we'll have a better feel. You know, spring is spring. Once you start getting into fall camp and get closer to game and in the summer and all those things, he's handling it great. He's taking it right in stride. But to your point, we're a lot younger in the quarterback room. We feel good about it. We love Preston. We feel really good about where he is and where he's going to go. We feel great about Kevin. We're excited about Keldrick, who will be coming in, and then Alex, who's joined us as well. But we are pretty young. You know, we lost a lot of that experience, and so that'll be a process. That'll be a learning curve, and a lot of things that are firsts. And but I expect him to handle it really well.
Obviously, this past year was your first year and your staff, but it was also the first year with Sean Griswold as your strength coach. So now, after a year working with him and his staff, who has caught your eye, either being significantly bigger and stronger, or leaner, or quicker, physically, who's caught your eye after a year?
That's a good question. I think on defense, I think DeVere Levelston, you're starting to see he's really working on just really getting bigger in his lower half. I think in just the winter portion for 6 or 7 weeks, he's started to do that. So I think he'll continue between now and early September to change his body in a good way, even for an older guy. I think on offense, you look at Jordan Curley. Jordan Curley, to my knowledge, has never had a full offseason. I don't know what it was like when he was at Arizona State, but he came here and he's either been in a transfer mode or hurt and having off-season surgeries, you know, since he's been here, or been really limited in what he can do. And he's already 10, 15 pounds heavier than he played a year ago, and that's just in 6 or 7 weeks. And so, you know, I think the added weight will make him a more physical player, but it'll also hopefully keep him healthier. And so I think that's two guys that stand out. And just overall, year 2 with Grizz, you can just tell our guys there's a comfort level there, and it's been pretty seamless.
Piggybacking off that a little bit, injury bugs hit a little bit. Is that something you change anything in strength and conditioning and off-season workouts to try and prepare for? And were there any major changes, or is it just kind of fine-tuning some things?
I wouldn't say any major changes. Obviously, some years you have more injuries than others, so you're trying to look, is this a trend, or is this just sometimes more guys get hurt or less guys get hurt? You know, shoulders and AC seem to be a thing. So you're looking at everything from the turf you're playing on to your pads to what are we doing maybe in the spring and summer. I know Grizz is trying to implement some things to just maybe go over and above on what we do with our shoulders and things. Not that we think we were doing anything that contributed to injuries. Same thing, we're checking all the pads. We have the best pads, but is there something we can do to make sure that if it's preventable, we're doing that? So, you know, but I don't think there's anything to like glaringly get concerned about. We've been fortunate for 3 straight days to not get anybody hurt. The guys that are out are guys that are out, you know, with either in-season or post-season surgeries, and we expect them to all be back by fall camp.
We saw you a couple of weeks ago talking about signing day, which included a bunch of transfers.
Yeah.
How far ahead are the guys who came from Miami, who are familiar with you and Coach Justice and Coach Likens, over the other guys who have transferred in from other schools?
Yeah, I mean, I would think Keyshawn and Romello and Jalen on the offensive side, you know, other than having to just hear it again and go, oh, yeah, I remember that. But just obviously being familiar with the coaches now, you know, in Jalen's case, Coach Hall's a different coach, but they're doing a great job there. But, yeah, the familiarity helps. You know, on the other side, the defensive guys, it's totally new to them. But they've meshed well. They've jumped right in, and you can tell they're like, yeah, I remember this, you know. So.
With some of those offensive guys, obviously very different, you know, no tackling or anything, but do you see some of that explosiveness that was maybe missing already in 3 days out here? I think so. I think you can see whether it's Jalen or Knighton or even LJ. And I even think Belton looks healthy and more explosive out of the running back positions. I think you can tell. We've got a chance to be more explosive, hopefully, especially in the run game. And our quarterbacks are a little bit more of a threat there, too.
Last year, so much of your passing game went through Rasheed Rice, who's about to go to the NFL. Do you need one guy to sort of establish himself as a lead receiver, or could you have a more balanced attack and be just as effective?
Yeah, speaking of Rasheed, he's running, I think, at 2:30 today, so we're excited to see him run well. He had a great Senior Bowl. You know, yeah, last year, everything did kind of go through Rasheed, more so than just about any year I can remember. Even when we had James and he was elite with his stats, like I didn't feel like we ran it all through him as much. And so when you have a guy like that, you do those things, but I do think it'll be more spread out. Someone will probably rush to the top as the leading receiver, but we don't really care who that is. But I think you can start to see, especially when Jake Bailey comes back fully healthy, you know, you're starting to look at 2 and even 3 deep at all your receiver spots, and I think we'll be a little bit deeper at tight end as well. And that's what you hope. Like, hey, let the defense dictate who's open, and that's where the read goes. And we got to have guys, you know, consistently be able to make plays. But the hope is that your 2 deep is really like 1 and 1A. It's like who starts doesn't really matter. It gets a lot of pub, but it's like, hey, when he's tired, he goes in, and you don't skip a beat. And the ball gets spread around, and that makes it to where the defense has to play honest and can't, you know, shift one way or the other. So I could see us being more like that. I'm sure someone will raise their level, but I think we got a good problem there right now.
With the crowd you have in the backfield, is Rasheed Daniels a full-time receiver again, or?
No, Roderick is going to be mainly the spring just because of depth, because Jake's almost cleared, but we won't do much with him in the spring just out of, I'd say, abundance of caution. But he's doing great, you know. He'll play mainly receiver in the spring. Maybe towards the end we'll kind of start to toy a little bit. But I still think as we ended the season last year, you saw how good he was with the ball in his hands. I'm not saying he is this guy, but the way he's used, like Deebo Samuel's used in the NFL. And that's kind of the way we see him. He can run the football out of the backfield, catch it out of the backfield, obviously return game, and all the ways he can get the ball as a receiver. And we're still going to try to utilize that skill set, when we get closer to the season.
What's your prediction for Rasheed? How's he going to run?
I'm going to say he's going to go under 4.5. So let's go 4.48.
You got one more if you have it?
Defensively, tackling was kind of an issue last season. Coach Simons kind of talked about maybe spring and fall would have to look a little different on that side of the ball. Were there conversations about that? And what have you seen through 3 days about what they're doing over there?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, like I said, building the foundation is a big deal. We use the analogy, our Weber end zone facility is going up. It's going to take about 18 months to build. They spent over 60 days already, and all they've been doing is moving dirt. So they're going to probably spend 3 or 4 months on the foundation. And that's 15-20% of the entire project. It sounds crazy, but that's how important the foundation is, right? So that's what spring is for us. And so we did look back and said, offensively, the first 4 games we turned the ball over at an alarming rate. First 4 or 5 games, excuse me. And then, with the exception of Tulane, we were pretty good the rest of the way. But when we don't turn the football over, we're pretty hard to beat. We got to do a better job blocking, especially in space, and just understanding leverage and those things. So the first 10 minutes every practice, that's all we work on. And then on defense, again, the foundation fundamentals is, running to the football. Covers up a lot of problems. Taking the proper angles, setting an edge to your defense, and tackling. And so that's what we're spending the first 10 days of every practice doing here. And those got to become our habits, because it doesn't matter what call you make if those aren't good. And so, to your point, we've identified those as areas we want that to be who we are. We want to be really good. I think there's a misconception. You don't have to go live all the time to be great tacklers, but you got to work at it all. And so we'll do a good mix of that.